Sometimes in boating, things can just go wrong, and people will cut you off and bad things can happen. Fortunately, in this situation, the two missed, but not everybody's so fortunate, as we'll see in some of the stories that we feature on this week's episode of Boating News of the Week. Our first story to make the boating news this week is going to take us down to Australia and the Bass Strait, a body of water between mainland Australia and Tasmania, where this was the scene a little over a week ago when 3 sailors decided they were going to cross from Tasmania to the mainland in their 10-meter sailing vessel. During this crossing, they encountered some extremely rough weather, which wound up immobilizing their sailing boat, and they lost control of the ship. The trio tried to make repairs to get their boat back under control, but the weather conditions were too rough and were unsuccessful in doing so. Rescuers were called to try and come out and assist the group, but during that time, the vessel actually wound up colliding with a commercial carrier and began to take on water. The first rescuers to arrive on the scene was a rescue helicopter, but due to the extremely rough conditions, the helicopter was not able to winch the trio. However, they did remain on the scene in an aerial position to assist with monitoring the incident, until a local police vessel could arrive to try and pull the men off the ship. Another commercial cargo carrier was also enlisted to try and help save the men. The cargo carrier pulled up alongside of the sailing boat to block it from the wind, but also to try and control its direction as rescuers arrived to try and get the men off. Here we can see in the images that were captured from the helicopter the difficulty the rescuers had in this situation. They were dealing with extreme sea, wind, and weather conditions, a vessel that had no control over itself, making it extremely difficult for rescue crews to get the 3 men off the sailing boat over to the rescue vessel. In these images here, you can even see just how much difficulty the man on the sailing yacht has just even standing up in these conditions, let alone trying to cross over from this boat over to the rescue vessel. He winds up falling multiple times as he tries to do so, and in these dangerous conditions, they have to be careful. If one of these guys goes overboard, that could be it. Fortunately, in this situation, the rescue crews are able to get all 3 off of the ship, and no injuries are reported. Good job by the rescue crews down here in Australia. Our next story, well, let's go ahead and stay in Australia, where this was the scene this past week as these images were released showing a crew that went out on a fishing trip and things went wrong when a rogue wave hit their fishing vessel, causing the boat to capsize. The situation all unfolded so fast the crew was unable to access any life jackets. But fortunately in this situation, rescue came quickly as the crew did have an emergency locator beacon on board the vessel, so the second they hit the water, a signal was released to rescue crews letting the rescuers know the vessel was in trouble and the exact location of the crew. A Westpac rescue helicopter was the first to arrive to the scene and was able to successfully winch the entire crew up into the helicopter without injury. But rescuers do remind you, if you're going offshore, make sure you have easy access to your life jackets at all times. Our next story to make the boating news this week is going to take us over to the coast of Hawaii, where just a little over a week ago, this was the scene when the 94-foot yacht Noka wound up grounding on the north side of Maui's Honolulu Bay, a state-protected marine sanctuary. According to initial reports, some point in time during the evening, the yacht's mooring line wound up breaking, causing the vessel to drift ashore. But as the vessel hit the shore and began to take on water, the bilge pumps turned on and all of a sudden began evacuating diesel fuel into the water around the protected area. Salvage crews quickly jumped into action, trying to create a plan to make sure to get the fuel off the vessel to try and protect as much of the environment around the area as possible. Unfortunately, due to the extreme remote location in the shallow waters, it wasn't going to be accessible for them to bring a vessel in to remove the fuel, so they decided to go with an aerial approach. They dropped crews onto the boat, began extracting the diesel fuel, and then used a helicopter to remove the fuel from the vessel. Crews are still working on an overall plan to try and get the yacht off the shore. No injuries were reported during the incident. Our next story to make the boating news is a pretty wild one. It's going to take us to the coast of the country of Georgia, where this past week storms over the Black Sea caused a naval mine to become dislodged from its anchor and actually drift into the surf zone near a beach in Batumi. Fortunately, in this situation, the mine was spotted early and people were encouraged to stay away from it, as the mine did eventually detonate once it was washed on shore. Nobody was injured in the situation, but local authorities do warn to be on the lookout for additional items such as this coming near the coast. Thanks for watching, guys. I hope you enjoyed this week's episode of Boating News of the Week. If you ever see anything crazy happening out on your waterways, be sure to hit us up on Facebook or Instagram and let us know, and you might see your stories over here. Just like James Pataris, Picasso West, Alex Poot, Anna Lubakova, Eric Karasis, and Purple Lures did this week. And if you guys haven't already, go ahead and drop an anchor on the subscribe button here. If not, we're coming to steal your drain plug.